Hi all, there's people still continuing to join. We're going to give it 2 minutes, so thank you for your patience. Hi, Frank.
Hello, hey, third time's a charm. All right.
We're just going to give it one more minute before getting started. There's people still joining.
No worries.
Right, okay, we're going to get going. So thanks very much everybody who's come and joined. I'm Adam Gordon, and I do a few things on the internet around talent acquisition. One of them is I actually I normally co-host a show that's called Recruiting Brain Food Live, which is at this precise time, which is kind of unfortunate this week. But anyway, yeah, thanks very much for coming and taking part. If you've got a question for Frank, please use the Q&A function, which is just at the bottom of the screen, and I promise that we will get to it. So the first thing I want to do is just welcome Frank. Thanks very much for coming and joining me this morning for you. Do you want to just give yourself a quick introduction? Tell us about what's your CV?
Yeah, there we go. Sure. So I'm Frank Wittenauer. I'm a global talent technology leader. I live in Connecticut in the United States. I'm one of those people that spends their time optimizing people processes and their enabling talent systems. So if you think about the people, the process, and the technology, that's been my focus. That's been most of my career. So making the experiences better for the candidates, the employees, the managers, the leaders, that's the part that's really exciting to me. I'm one of the few computer science nerds that have spent their entire career, the majority of my career, in this space, and most of that's been with Deloitte and global talent, working across 5 continents. Thanks.
Great. Okay. So the first thing I want to ask you about, I'm going to ask you some questions before we take any from anybody else. And this is a really big one. I mean, 2020 has been one of the strangest years ever recorded in the human race. What do you think it means for the talent sort of markets, and what's your kind of general overview of the environment that we're living in today?
Yeah, we need to think back around what has happened to help predict, what can happen in the future. So if it took us, 4 to 5 weeks to, just in the US, for example, using the data I have handy, it took 4 to 5 weeks to exit 30+ million people from the workforce. Who knows how many people were let go from organizations around the world. It's going to take 12 to 18 months. If you look at normal hiring volumes or the method of how we've hired in the past, to hire that workforce back. And many of the jobs in those organizations historically were there are not going to be there. And it's going to be the organizations that survive this and where they want to go in the future. So we'll have to pivot, and how we'll function will pivot. Many organizations in the past, they really need to change their focus or just go out of business, and we're seeing that. So this gives us an opportunity, huge opportunity for new businesses to be created, but to be focused on what's next and really what the workforce needs for services, for future services, anticipating what the new model is going to look like.
When you say that, are you talking specifically about sort of recruitment or talent technologies, or are you talking about like in every industry, there's the opportunity for new employers to emerge?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's across the board. Whether it's a restaurant, indoor dining is a challenge, right? So organizations who've pivoted to figure out, hey, how do we do outdoor dining? Or how are we going to service a market in the future? How do we handle remote work? Well, there's probably 100 new businesses that have popped up to focus on how we're going to service people that are remote workers.
Yeah.
We probably don't need as much dry cleaning as an example. So what will the dry cleaners have to pivot to or go out of business, right? That someone's going to need, there's going to be new opportunities, new industries. Is that going to be, why we see the rise of Lululemon stock as an example? Because people are casual at home, and they're wearing that. Okay, so these clothing retailers are going to have to pivot to what they want to sell because the market's changed. But it's going to be in heavy industry, in knowledge worker industry. How are we going to pivot? Do you really need the office of the future to be serving 3 meals a day, and we're going to have great activities and events in the office when half the workforce is home? So how do we have an inclusive workforce? If we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, we want to find the best talent we can around the world. This is that opportunity. This is that moment to upgrade our skills and not just go after the least cost talent that's in our backyard, to go after the very best talent we can.
Absolutely. Okay, I understand that. Now, what do you think, so specifically, if we take some of those big concepts that we've talked about, those macro issues, what do you think that means for talent acquisition?
Yeah, absolutely. Focus on that area. It's always going to be a special place in my heart. So when you think about those organizations that were exiting people quickly, that included their talent acquisition people. Yeah, hey, we're not hiring anymore. Let's get rid of those people. And the first to go are the contract help, right? Here's contractors. You all have to go. You know that you're in a flex workforce. That's the nature of that work. So they went, and then the TA people, hey, we're not recruiting right now. Boom, let's get the talent acquisition people to go. In many cases, recruiters were not even given time to close out the requisitions they had or unpost positions. So when people sit there and go, wow, look at how many jobs are still out there in the market. Well, how much of that is that the recruiters have posted opportunities that they never closed them out? And the candidates, think about the candidate experience. Those candidates that were in process, they're not being followed up on. They're just left hanging. So the industry talking heads, and we've seen them on calls over the last 6 or 8 months, they're going to talk about the candidate experience is still important. It's still super vital. Well, if you're out of work and applying to opportunities that are already filled, that they're not real opportunities, or you're not being followed up with, you're going to challenge those industry talking heads on their views. Do we really mean this, or are we just giving it lip service from the talking heads or from key industry leaders saying, yeah, it's really, really, really important, but do we really mean that? So for instance, like sourcing specialists or recruiters, right? The average is you have 6 to 30 seconds. They're going to review a candidate. Why aren't they sending out the hey, you're not a fit, Frank, emails right away? Why are those taking weeks or months for many organizations? Or they only do it when they close out a rec? Well, if you already know someone's not a fit in 6 seconds because they're a broom pusher applying for an electrical engineering position or whatever programmer position, then send them that message right away. You don't need to wait. And do it as you're doing the work or scanning the resume. So, I do think there's specific impacts to talent. It makes the talent acquisition industry, it weakens it because we're not following up with these people.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that this is a bigger challenge than ever right now, because there's probably more people applying for jobs than recruitment teams can cope with. And people often say, we need to put the human back in recruitment, and we need to stop trying to turn it into a completely automated process. But my answer to that is often, when you create an automated process, it doesn't forget to call the candidate back. It doesn't forget to tell them they've not got the job. It doesn't forget to, it doesn't leave them hanging. And so, I really believe that humans can really make a recruitment process by the way that they go about, going the extra mile for those candidates that are spot on for that job. But they can also really break it and really destroy an organization's reputation by ignoring the 95% of people who applied for the job and were never going to be suitable.
So true. Yeah, no, it definitely, we're not, those leaders that are left, are they being notified that these things are hanging? Are they, do they, here's candidates that were at the interview step that, haven't been spoken to in 2 weeks, or a day, or, 3 months. Here's here's positions that are posted. Does the CHRO, does the chief talent officer, do they know, hey, you're telling the market you have these things open, or these people haven't been followed up on? So like an example, let's pick on the pharmaceutical industry, right? Think about all the research that they do and all the technical, they have to be so diligent about what they do. That can't change.
Yeah, true.
Yet, if we went to the boardroom, do we want to say, look at these processes that are falling all over the place as it relates to talent? Could we assume this is how you do pharmaceutical research on the next vaccine or the next treatment to disease? I think if the boardroom discussed that, the CEOs of these organizations would flip out. They would have strong feelings to say, no, we are very diligent about how we do our work. Therefore, we're very diligent with how we treat our people. Yet, it really hasn't bubbled up yet because we have talent acquisition sitting under the HR umbrella as the redheaded stepchild still, and we haven't really broken that out. But I do think there's an opportunity to split out the traditional HR, compliance, payroll, employee relations piece. We can split that out, from talent, talent acquisition, performance, succession, learning, onboarding, workforce planning, those kinds of things. So I think there's some opportunities.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I'm interested if you think that one of the reasons that talent acquisition's got so much room for improvement is because it is quite a young kind of discipline. I mean, it's like, finance and legal and even things like marketing are more established professions, if you like. Would you agree?
Yeah, established, I think, is the key word. That, we've been doing talent acquisition or recruitment since the dawn of time, that, hey, fellow caveman, you want to come with me and let's go attack this mammoth and eat dinner tonight, So, I mean, we've been recruiting forever. But to me, it's one of the, and I've been in this space since 1995, so 25 years, this is the last well-defined process. So if you think if the economy is really great, or the economy is really horrible, the sales process, research process, there's many business tasks that have to be done exactly the same way, no matter what. Where in recruitment, that can alter depending on what's going on. If the economy is really rocking, some organizations will say, well, let's do the background check after they start. I shook hands with this person at lunch. They're really great. Let's just bring them on, and steps can get skipped, like, well, we generally do 6 interviews and we have a panel process that we do. Oh, but this is a really great person. Let's ramrod them through the process. Or if the economy is really bad, well, you know what? Let's have them come in again. Let's have them come in 4 different times, meet with these 6 different people who are going to ask the same exact questions because we didn't have an interview guide or a plan with how we're going to interview people. So to me, talent acquisition has always been the last well-defined process because it really flexes depending upon the organization and the economy. So lots of factors.
So what do you think are the biggest opportunities that we have to really develop our, I guess within recruitment technology in particular, what are the biggest opportunities we have to make recruitment better and make our organizations better as a result?
Yeah, I think there's a few, and off the top of my head, I would want to start with the talent acquisition industry and then drill down where we can go into the TA technology specifically. If you think about the talent acquisition industry, huge opportunities. And there's always been great opportunities for change, but I think right now, this is the time when the economy's bad. that's the time to go in and make some changes, not to wait till the economy's rocking and everyone just needs to do what they're doing.
Yep.
This is the time to change processes. And if that requires changing of tools and all that, fine. But the change to me is the paradigm with how we've previously worked in TA. In the past, a recruiter is going to focus on the rec that's in front of them. And if the candidate was not a fit for that rec, the candidate might not as well exist at all. Just get rid of them. Next, 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 delete, whatever. You move on. The opportunity is that we need better matching tools to match people with the opportunity to say, wow, this, you know what? I just came across this great person. Where's the matching button that tells me which rec they fit for, or what position they're fit for? Or, hey, which hiring managers are they a fit for? So we can have a better find your fit into the organization, but driven by the recruiters. So whether it's a headhunting firm and all that, right? They focus on the rec that's in front of their face. How do we change that paradigm and say, wow, I just came across two really great people. Which organizations they fit in, or where in my organization do these people fit? So we have a way, an opportunity here to change that matching, and we can leverage the human piece, the human factor component of this, to think about where in the organization that person can contribute to the business success versus the requisition approach, which is how do I just put butts in seats and fill this position and match and move on.
Yeah,
I think there's that industry opportunity there. And then when we go into the tools a bit, and I've been tracking this on a spreadsheet, some of these configurations are old, right? In many organizations, you treat an implementation as a project. It had a definite beginning and a definite end date. So it's a project. We've implemented the system. We check the box and we move on to the next thing. However, when we implement a recruitment solution, a talent acquisition process, it needs to be a process. It started on a particular date and has no end date. Every month, every day, every week, every year, whatever, we're going to make some changes to this. And we need configurations that make sense. So, for instance, many organizations will have date fields, right? You're going to date when you started a job, or date when you ended a job, date when you started school or ended school. But why at the time of applying does an organization need to know the month and day of a guy like me, candidate like me, 25 years of experience? What day did I start school? What day did I end school? I don't know. But it's a required field on many systems. Now, I could see that if I'm dealing with a student apply process and I want to time graduation date to when they might want to start, okay, that might be important, but that might be further down the process. But for every position that I've ever had in my career, what was the month and day I started? What was the month and day I left? Why do some organizations feel that's important? It's a required field. So if they have that configuration challenge, how many other configuration challenges do they have? To me, that's just the tip of the iceberg that's outside the water. That we now have 70% of that iceberg under the water. Oh my goodness! And so then, please.
It sets a tone for what it'd be like to work there as well. You get the sense that this is not a slick process. Working there is not going to be a slick process.
It's not an evolving process.
Correct.
It's so true that it should change. It should continue. And I also think leaders, whether it's the TA leader, the CHRO leader, whether it's business and hiring managers, once a quarter, at least once a year, people should apply. And find out how painful that process is and understand, is that really what we want? So I can remember at Deloitte dealing with one of the countries that had a really the most complicated hiring process, the most number of screening questions, most number of details. And I kept saying, this is more complicated than any other firm. What's the deal? What's going on here? No, this is regulatory, it's rules, this is what we have to do. And we kept going back and forth for months. And finally, I got it right to the right level. And one of the partners had gone through this process. And they said, this is horrible. And so then they jumped on me, blaming the system, when come to find out, it was the local firm with that requirement that was saying that we must do it this way. And so then they were able to change. But we had to go through that level of pain that I just don't think we needed to, that we needed to really help them get to a better place. So you're right there. And if I can add, when we're talking about opportunities, I think there's opportunities in recruitment marketing as well. That if you think about how we've evolved from an HRIS to an ATS to a CRM, to now we're going to talk about recruitment marketing. In many organizations, is that just the email communication? Organizations are spending so much time and money and cost per month to post opportunities, and they're not really leveraging the talent they already have. They're not really nurturing the candidates that they have. So you have a candidate pool. How do we communicate with them? How do we keep them engaged? How do we find where in that talent pool is the next group of talent we're going to recruit? And the external postings really need to be looking at the skills that organizations have in that talent pool, and then say, okay, here's the skills that we don't have. And now let's go after that. And also leveraging referrals. I'm still hearing huge amounts of costs to acquire talent from a job posting, that type of mechanism that we've been talking about since the 90s. Yep. However, on the experienced hire side, we still say referrals. Employee referrals are still the number one source of external hires. If that's true, let's go out and measure it. If it's not true in your organization, there's work to be done. Employee referrals should always be the number one source of hire. So let's have campaigns. And then some organizations say, well, yes, we have a process. Here's our employee referral process. But is it a campaign? Have a position, and it can be tied to recruitment marketing. So how do we encourage people to launch not just a generic campaign, oh, please, we'll pay you to refer people that get hired. How about we go after specific skills? Hey, these are people with the skills in our organization already. They probably know somebody. And let's go market to them and say, hey, we want more people like you. You could even do this from an inclusive standpoint. How do we go after people that we're missing? Let's go find those people and let's go ask them to go refer people. Let's develop a campaign for this. But there's much more that can be measured with just who clicked on my email from a recruitment marketing standpoint. And that's to me another great opportunity in the TA industry. And I don't want to see these organizations miss the chance to get ahead, miss the chance to win. We should be focused on how do we help our organization win, and a good chunk of that is the talent. So when you look at the organizations that are on this call, all the others, how many positions do they have open? How long is it taking them to hire people? There are so many unemployed people around the world that can fit those positions. We should be a quarter of the amount of time as it took in the past because the talent's out there. Let's go find them. And if the skills are really hard to find, what can we do to educate them? So how does talent acquisition sit there and say, hey, here's 3 areas where, the talent pool is really shallow. We're not able to find people here. How do we find people that are really close? Work with our learning team to shift to be externally focused for 5 or 10%. Educate those 50 people or 100 people or 5 people in the skills that we need, 2 or 3 things. And now let's bring them in. Now recruitment can say, hey, you know what, they're a perfect fit now. Let's get them on board. Or have the hiring manager say, they're a good fit now. Like agile methodology be a generic example that, there's all these project management people out there. Many organizations will say, oh, I need agile. Well, agile, the generic agile isn't going to be your interpretation at your organization, what agile means to you. Does it just mean, hey, we're doing this in a quick way? What does your interpretation mean versus the Project Management Institute method? So it'd be better for your organization to teach people your methodology so that they can learn those courses and be a right fit for your organization. So I think there's great opportunities right now to tackle this.
Wow, very interesting. Let's move on to some questions from some of our guests. So the first one, which was submitted on social media, is from Arlene McDade. I need to caution you, Frank, before answering. Arlene is a lawyer, and her question is, Do you agree that job applicants should have access to information on how their CV content is being parsed, summarized, displayed, and ranked by recruitment technology?
Well, first, after the organizations I worked for in the past, my first response is going to be, I do not provide legal advice to organizations. They need to work with their own counsel on that. But thinking about complying with GDPR, especially the people that we have on this call, if you're Europe-based, how do we comply with that, and making sure when someone says, hey, I want to know where my data is, you have 30 days to comply and provide that back to the person. Organization need to do that. Do we need to give away the secret sauce into how your data passes from one system to another, how that data is translated, what are the particular fields that are used? I'm sure most organizations would say no. And think about that, many times we're actually working with the vendor with non-disclosure agreements, so they're not even acknowledged as being a client, or white labeling products. So when someone does apply, you don't even know the vendor. In other cases, the client did not white label the product, so you can actually see what the TA system is, or what's being done, because there'll be a label somewhere at the bottom of the screen or on an email or something. But other cases, it's white labeled, so it's intentionally not to let people know. But also, things are going to change. So whatever you were told today might not be what's there a month from now or next quarter, if something's updated or moved or modified, or new tools implemented, or processes that are changed.
Okay. So I'm going to talk through a couple of the other questions that we have. The first one is from Sharad. And his question is, what are the best practices to attract talent from mid-sized companies? This is not necessarily a specific technology question, but in your experience, he's talking about a mid-sized company of like 450 employees. What would be what in your experience, what do you think are the best practices for attracting talent?
The first part is leveraging, if we're talking about experienced hires, go to the employees themselves. How many times in your experience with your organization has an employee referral campaign been started? Is that a monthly message that goes out? Does a message go generically to everyone, or does it go to the targeted groups that recruitment's really looking for? Let's go, we're after these particular skills. These people in the organization have those skills. How do we go talk to them? So the first part, I would start there. Then also, when you think about recruitment marketing, most organizations, oh, well, we got to go search LinkedIn. Let's post it on LinkedIn. As you build your talent pool, how do we leverage that existing talent pool? How do we do a Google search? How do we go out and just generically find these people? And many steps you can do are at no cost. Making sure you understand the power of a Google search, or any of these search engines. They all have a little bit that's slightly different, but the tools are amazing with what people can do with writing a really good Boolean search. And there's all kinds of classes that help with that. In some cases, it's specific to TA to help people with it. But there's many free costs. I mean, the big piece, in reality, even for a mid-sized organization, you can recruit on an Excel spreadsheet. You do not need a big high-tech system. So any of these organizations that come back and say, well, the reason why we missed our recruiting numbers last year was, because of this awful system or whatever that we have. And I would challenge that. Is it the process that's really slowing it down? Is it that, well, we had our recruiters also working on these other projects versus smiling and dialing and connecting with people? There's many things that can be done, and you want to drop the cost of recruiting in your organization, throw out your system and go work on a spreadsheet if you had to, right? But that, doesn't make sense, because there's so much you can do with the tools that are out there today. And some of the newer tools, you can focus more at the top of the funnel and work your way down in its amazing potential that what could be there, versus the historical, I'm going to start with the HRIS and work my way up and just bolt on different pieces that don't work well together. So I think there's huge opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, on that last point, I think, I absolutely agree with that. And I also think that your point about employee referral being like one of the first places to start is one that we often miss out on in organizations because it's not, it doesn't get landed properly. Most people kind of know that should be important, but it doesn't really get landed properly. There is another question about employee referral being your primary source of new candidates around what does that do to diversity? Because let's face it, my friends all kind of look like me. They're interested in the same things as me, so, there is a question mark about it in connection with that. But generally, I absolutely agree. So
let's target.
Jack,
Let's target that in the employee referral. When we're looking inside the organization and we're looking for talent, whether it's skills gaps or demographic gaps, right? The odds are that we will win more engagements if our client engagement team looks like the client. So if we have demographic gaps in our people, then let's target that and let's be open about it. Let's not just blanket a term around, hey, we want diversity hiring. What specifically are we looking for? Here's a gap. This is what we're trying to fill. Yeah. Whether it's skills, whether it's abilities, or how people look, or gender, or whatever the situation is. Let's be intentional about what we're trying to do, and then go make that happen. And we can go after referrals in a specific way. I think even the internal talent. So when we talk about the referrals, I would even step before referrals. Have we leveraged our internal talent? And because part of this is an important number with how we reward talent acquisition. In some organizations, it's just butts and seats hires. You get so many, you got to do 10 a month or 35 a year, whatever the number is. Fine. Other organizations, it might be by points. The talent acquisition team might only be rewarded for external hires. So they're disincentivized to look at internal talent. It's a negative if the internal talent gets the job or an employee referral gets the job. The recruiting team gets dinged. So the model needs to shift for sure.
That can be particularly prominent in organizations that have got a heavy reliance on an RPO partner, because the RPO is often incentivized, to a much higher degree to bring people in from outside rather than do the internal kind of talent brokerage. This is a challenge which is, there's a lot of tech solutions looking at fixing that challenge right now. But certainly we have a new customer success director joining us on the 1st of October, and her manifesto, if you like, is about looking at talent through one lens. So, who are all the people that could do this job, whether it's buy, build, borrow, whether they're working for you today or whether they're working for the competitor, whether they used to work for you. It's about being able to really understand everybody in the one place. And that's what she's very focused on. I've got, there's more questions to come in the chat. I've got a really challenging one, probably, and slightly controversial question, I think. I started in recruitment in 1999. I did a very manual job. Email existed. There wasn't much of the internet around, really. It was Alta Vista and pretty difficult to navigate. I couldn't automate very much. How much in, let's say, 5 years' time, how much of a recruiter's job will have been automated?
I hope more. My answer 5 years from now would be, what can we automate that's more? What I want to protect, though, is those human abilities to say, here's this person's CV. Wow, you know what? This person is a fit for this opportunity. It doesn't read that way. They can actually do this. We're not seeing machines that can make that assumption about transferable skills. We're not seeing that and there's a human component to it. If we're talking about just matching or doing a search or the automation or how to put an offer letter together, or I have a new hire starting, how do I trigger all the onboarding automations? I want all that automated. as much as possible. And what can we do to make it even simpler so that, you know, a recruiter can push a button, the message is going to go out. The recruiter pushes another button, they calls the candidate, or it schedules and syncs up the calendars between the candidate and the recruiter so that they know exactly when they can speak. That's bi-directional syncing on those things. You know, automate as much of that as possible so recruiters can truly spend their time relationship building. Sourcing specialists can spend their time seeing, hey, how do I build a little bit higher up the funnel to keep the recruiter busy with those that we need to go talk to? Then how does the recruitment marketing team spend that time? Hey, how do I go after targeted skills that the sourcing specialist is going to want to phone screen to see if they're even if they're available or remotely a fit for the organization, if the comp's within range, all that stuff. So now we're rebuilding that funnel. Can we automate throughout all those steps? Absolutely. But can the basic mechanics, it only works if the basic mechanics are working well, right? So, I mean, to me, sourcing is there's a phone, there's a computer, get me 50 people with these skills, you know, and someone's got to go figure that out and smile and dial and make that happen. A lot of skills, you know, have been lost over the years. People aren't as comfortable picking up the phone, calling. You know, let's search a database, let's send a message, then we have to wait and back and forth, whatever. We need to get out of our comfort zone and challenge ourselves. We need the TA team to constantly want to evolve. You know, the thing I've experienced over the last 25 years is that recruiters, the best recruiters will say, I want to make the most money. I want to recruit better, faster, cheaper than I've ever had before. I want the latest and greatest tools. Just don't change the way I do it today. You know, and they'll always say that. And they're really good people, but we need to help. We need to mentor. We need to coach. We need to bring them along the journey to say, here's where we are today. Here's where we're going to be 5 years from now. And we need to go through these 52 steps to get there. And we need to be comfortable that once we're there and we've implemented all the things in our plan, we're going to do more. And there'll always be a chance to automate something. And what can we do to anticipate? What can we do, which then takes us down to the AI route. Or if I always click these three things, or if I'm always doing these same steps, what machine learning can be done to say, hey, you always do it this way. Let's just prompt you. You know what? You always put your offer letters together like this. Is this what you want for the next offer letter? Yeah, actually, that's pretty close. All right, hey, great. You know, so that's just learning the mechanics that we go through. Their tools will get there. Are they all there today? No. Are some getting, you know, further along? Absolutely. And I want to encourage more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I just want to go quickly back because Arlene's asked a question which is relating to what you were talking about on employee referral. And I'm actually going to just extend her question slightly. So she's asked, are hiring companies running the CVs through the HR technology to check the output, and maybe some of those CVs wouldn't beat the algorithm? I'm going to add to that, are companies, when they are looking at internal candidates, are they running their internal profiles or their CVs through the algorithm as well? Or are these like assessment products that a lot of companies use today, are they only really evaluating external hires that have not been referred?
Yeah, let's look at the internal talent first. Just thinking about the experiences that I've had, they'll have an internal job posting site. Here's these opportunities, and someone can apply to an opportunity, and here's their resume, and it goes through, you know, a mini applicant tracking process. It'll be a component or a module of the ATS. However, it does not have the entire organization's profiles in there. And to me, it should, because many of those people I'm going to want to do recruitment marketing to go after more talent, or maybe trigger for them, well, you know what, this is an opportunity for me. Let me go and apply to this. Let me express interest in this. Yeah. And internally, we need to shortcut some processes. You know, does the internal talent need to go to a sourcing specialist and a recruiter and then have an HR interview and then meet a hiring manager? Or can we just say, hey, go talk to Jane, that's the hiring manager for here, and we're going to connect you faster? Because it should be a different process for internal talent. Then on the referral side, are there challenges with those processes? Absolutely. We know that if the CEO of any of our organizations hands over a resume of someone, that person is going to get a phone call, no matter what, right? And how do we do that in our organizations to treat all of the people that make a referral, even if they're not a fit? They're not even remotely a fit when we look at it. It's worth the call to build that credibility with the employee, just to say, hey, I talked to Joe. In that conversation, you give the person the 5 minutes to say they're not a fit. Here's why they're not a fit. And maybe they know somebody. Fine, but you build that credibility with the brand, right? Yeah. We've protected the brand and the organization's credibility, and you can feel confident going back to the referrer to say, yeah, I talked to them. They really weren't a fit for that particular opportunity. What can we do there? But the tools need to help as well when we go out and source the talent. So part of it is, how do we funnel the right people to the right opportunities? But also, let's make sure we follow up in person with the referrals.
Great. Okay. Some more questions. One's from an anonymous attendee who's asked that they would like to know your point of view regarding background checks. Are they necessary, and should we keep this practice of doing background checks on people in the new context? We can't do a background check on you because it says anonymous attendee.
Yeah, scary, huh? Yeah, no, I do think it depends on the organization, right? I mean, if you are in banking or a security cleared role or whatever, and someone wants to check, hey, did you have bankruptcies on your record, or have you had crimes, financial crimes against you? Then, hey, I want to be sensitive to that if you're going to be hired in the finance world, right? Yeah. Or if you are in any of the big defense contractors around the world and you've committed, bad types of crimes, hey, probably you're not a fit for some of those. But for many other organizations, you really need to talk it through with the legal team and get some outside advice that if someone had these things that showed up on a background check, do we care? Like, I've seen organizations be sensitive to, 20 years ago when they graduated university, they said their GPA was this, but in reality, it was 2 points off. Well, do we care about that? They're old now. They're like me. They forgot. Now, if they said, hey, they had a master's and a PhD in all these disciplines, and in reality, they didn't, we've seen CEOs get taken down for lying. And that's important. But are we out to find where someone potentially, no, we're not an investigative reporter. But if these things surface that someone did something, it comes to their credibility, and we probably don't want to have them. But there's probably many, many roles. Like when you do my background check, I can remember this for one organization. They actually gave it to the candidates. Here's the background check that we looked at, and it'll say, here's the speeding tickets that I've received. But they didn't care about that. They made it real clear they didn't. But it was a full detail of here's everything I've had in my degrees and the employers that I worked at and all that. And then I question, does that really matter in doing the role? Yeah. They first found I didn't lie about where I worked. So that's important. I'm not lying about that. But it does not tell me, do I have the potential to do that job in the future? And that's what we really are concerned about in talent acquisition, that, can this person do that job? And assessing for that future potential of what someone has, I'd be more focused on that than just the compliance piece of it. And we can let the compliance team worry about some of those other things. So sorry, I talked in a number of areas there. I hope I answered the question.
No, absolutely, you did. Okay, question from Travis. It's a sort of statement question. So he said, I hear a lot of people talking about growing their talent networks and reaching more people, and the emphasis always seems to be on more, more, more. But wouldn't it be advantageous to provide people with information that will allow them to self-select out of your talent network? You can't be right for everyone, and you really don't want to attract everyone, right?
From an organization perspective, many organizations, as they grow, they're really focused on how to cast a bigger net. They're always, I need this. And I was focused on this probably up until the Great Recession in 2007, 2008,
yep.
Where things shifted. For me, I just noticed a big shift to focus on quality of candidates, quality of applicants versus volume. I was always about volume, always about how do we cast this bigger net? And then it shifted. And now how do we focus that? How do we, if we're going to do job postings or any recruitment marketing or promoted opportunities or just promote our brand in general, it should not be just a blanket thing, which many organizations are doing. It's very generic. It should be incredibly targeted. And talent acquisition teams need to say, okay, of all the things that we're working on, these are the 3 top priority roles or skills or areas, industry areas, business units that we're going to focus on. Let's make sure that we're promoting that and we're targeting that. So then the talent communities, many of them just become this junk pile talent pool. Are they being leveraged, right? So if we talk about how do we leverage our internal talent, how do we leverage the, thinking about a Venn diagram here, we have the internal talent, the employer referral talent, the talent community that many of these systems have. People have put in their generic profile in there. Are those searched? I can remember an example just to pick on Deloitte. In my first couple of years there, the alumni team and what they did and how to connect talent with opportunities and the alumni talent that they had in their network was not connected to the TA team.
Yeah.
We're completely separate. Now, over the years, we connected all that together. But how many organizations are going through some of that now? How are they not leveraging these communities, these talent pools, whatever you want to find is the right words for your organization? These need to be leveraged. They need to be used. There are people in there that are waiting to be contacted. So let's change the paradigm to focus on the people first, then the opportunities that your organization has versus, I have this rec, who fits this rec. We can find these opportunities for people and we can really go after helping these organizations win by getting the right people in the right place at the right time for the right cost, whatever works for you for words.
Interesting that I also worked in the Big Four. I worked at PwC. I left there in 2007. I don't think I've heard from them since.
What a missed opportunity. And here's a guy who's founded organizations and CEOs, and wouldn't they want to, have you, talk to other clients and organizations or even help figure out their internal pieces? It's a missed opportunity.
Or maybe they'd hire me again. I don't know, but they don't keep in touch. Anyway, question from Jack. We're getting back to the sort of what's like top level kind of what's the world all about today. And Jack's asked specifically what type of talent or skills will employers be looking for post-COVID? And he's given some suggestions around like disaster recovery, supporting work from home, things like that. What are the sort of trends you think are likely to emerge?
Yeah, I think there's going to be some soft skills. There's going to be areas around problem solving that people haven't focused on in the past. Can you be a critical thinker? Can you challenge the status quo? I've always had the 80-20 principle that, hey, let's plan for this process to meet 80% of the criteria that's coming through. I think we need to focus, the future of this will be looking for these edge cases. They're going to be what did we miss? Because that's where your potential is. If we're really in revenue retention or revenue protection mode in many organizations, how do we look for those edge cases which might save us 1% revenue here, 5% revenue there? It's just different than pure skills. But many organizations are still short of certain skills, and the world is short of certain skills. We know this and often talk about it in technology. It'll be beyond technology for sure. But how can we be the most effective at what we do? How do we get comfortable with learning? How do we be comfortable with being uncomfortable? Yeah. How do we, I struggle with this often, but we all need this. How do we challenge our leaders to continue to learn, to continue to drive and push? Because many sit there and go, yes, I made it. I've got the golden chair in the corner office. I'm there. And they think they have it all figured out, right? We know in the last 18 years, half of the Fortune 500 organizations have turned over. Yeah. And we sit there and say, the employees were all bad, or my customers just didn't get it. The customers were bad. Or at some point, do we say, yeah, leaders missed the mark, And we have examples like that are out there. Are they taught enough? Yeah, I think there's opportunities to help focus on that. But also we need to focus on revenue. Many organizations, especially MBA candidates, they spend so much time on the business cases on the expense side of the equation, not the revenue side. So when they come out of school and they get put into organizations, it's going to be, how do we focus on compressing costs? How do we outsource non-essential pieces? How do we focus on inventory turns? They're focused on compressing costs. And I would challenge that we need to shift some of the case studies on revenue opportunities. And how do we miss that out? How do we not miss out on some of those revenue opportunities? Amazon, an example, will say they have no core business. I would have thought, no, they started with books. It must be books. No, they have no core business and they pivot to many things. Yet some of the largest organizations historically in the world are selling off parts of their business so they can focus on their core business. And look at their stock. Look at their market capitalization. They're missing an opportunity.
I really, one of my favorite things on the internet is a picture of Jeff Bezos from, I think it must have been like 1998 or something, and it was a picture of him and he looked really geeky, and it just says, I sell books. And then there's a picture of him like as if he's been working out with an explosion behind him, and it says, I sell whatever the beep I want. So I've got one final question from me, which is I'm going to ask you to name either some specific brands of technologies or specific types of recruitment technologies. What have you been most excited about in the last 12 months that you've seen, whether it's either developments in technology or whether it's specific brands that are doing really great things in recruitment?
Yeah, I do. I won't focus on the particular brands because they need to articulate their message and what they want to say. But I would say overused terms right now around machine learning and artificial intelligence. We need to focus on what's the problem we're trying to solve. Yeah. And if that problem solution leverages AI and machine learning, whatever, fine. Hey, no problem. But many organizations are going out I need to go buy this AI thing. I need to get into this AI thing. And my challenge is why? What are you looking to do? Now, hey, we're looking to automate this so that if we do these same steps in this same order every time, that the system just automatically does that. Oh, well, that's machine learning. Hey, we can do that. We can automate that. If when I click this button, I need these things to automatically go happen, and we're going to teach a system to go out and do that. Oh, that's artificial intelligence, and that's around automation. Great, that AI, and they both have their needs. But when people seek the method of how we solve the problem, they're after that first. They're going to confuse it. They're going to, the blinker, the turn indicator in my car is not artificial intelligence. It's not machine learning. It's a physical thing that's going to happen. It's an electrical circuit. it is not AI or machine learning. People are getting confused by that and they're throwing around the wrong terms. But if we can deal with massive amounts of data and be able to extrapolate, and AI can help with this, that if we need to extrapolate, here's skill gaps that we have in the organization today, or we'll have 18 months from now, or we'll have 5 years from now, and we can start to project future needs and then have the TA team start telling the learning team, this is what we need to develop for skills internally and externally. But wait, we've now connected the talent suite in a way no one's ever done before. And we leverage AI to get there. So dealing with massive amounts of data and to find those insights of the future, many people are talking about people analytics or talent analytics, and they're looking at historically what's happened. Well, that's just reporting and metrics and analytics. That's basics. But when we start projecting the future, when's the next, when's the next economic downturn? When's the next economic upturn? Well, how's that going to impact talent? Then you look at the people they're hiring. This is where you need one or two PhD economists that focus on data modeling to then start to project, because they've got to plug the algorithms in to be able to project that. But if you have someone running a Tableau report, they're not going to tell you what 5 years from now looks like. But we call it people analytics. We talk about data analytics. It's not doing that. Now, can you project a straight line or something like that? Sure. But that's not really an economic model. You need to go hire a PhD economist to help put together an economic model if we're really going to look at the planet for what we need for skills when we're dealing with high volumes of data. Now, if you're a smaller organization, mid-sized organization, you're not looking at data like that. You're not looking at how am I going to hire another 300,000 people or 400,000 people like you would at a large consultancy or one of the big four firms or something like that. But when you're smaller, you shouldn't be looking at those areas. You need to look at what your organization needs and what data you need. And there's a ton of automation, and it needs to be across the board. How do we get this manual tasks off recruiters' desks or anyone that's involved with talent? How do we make the employees and hiring managers' performance management process simpler, right? Oh, it's performance review time. Let me figure out the manual. What's the instructions on how to do that? No, it needs to be information they need right at the moment. How do we sit there and give it to them? They click a link and it says, hey, here's the 3 steps that you need to follow in case you forgot. Great. Or learning. How do we compress learning to really small bits of information they need just when they need it? Not, oh, you got to sit through these 3 weeks of courses and then here's a magic test at the end of this that, it's a pass-fail. We're going to let your manager know you failed this thing. We're all going to fail something. We're all going to have a problem. How do we learn, relearn, practice, practice, practice? And we got to do this all the time. We can't have, I haven't hit my quota of 40 hours of learning yet. Let me slam that all in Christmas week before, the measurement that takes place January 1st. Did I get my learning done in time? We need to shift the model to make it engaging. We used to talk about gamification years ago, and it used to be around, how do we make things more game-like? I think game-like is hugely important. I would shift the terms nowadays to talk about engaging. How many millions of people use Facebook? Who am I thinking of? Fortnite, Minecraft, Roblox. They do all these games on the phone without an instruction manual. They play for hours on end. Parents have to yank the phone away from their kids. It's an engaging tool. How do we develop an engaging tool for a sourcing specialist who has to sit in front of this tool all day long, smiling and dialing on the phone or sending out communications? How do we make that tool so engaging? I remember Pac-Man on Atari way back when. Yep. How do the first thing you see is a score, and you see a high score. How do we sit there and say, hey, here's the number of outbound calls you made today. Oh, and by the way, yesterday you made so many, so you need to one-up what you did yesterday. How do we have that? Well, you can go run a dashboard report and go, I don't want a dashboard report. I want it right there on the display. How do we make these tools so engaging that people want to use it, not that they have to use it? Sorry, I rambled there. I'm passionate about that one.
I absolutely agree. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to take that as a bit of product feedback for myself. I'm going to Please don't send me an invoice. I'm going to, yeah, how do we make these so engaging and keep coming back? Frank, I want to thank you so much for coming and joining us. We have another very, very big question, which I'm not going to ask on this. I'm going to post it on LinkedIn. I'm going to connect you and the person who's posted it, and I'm going to take it there because it's too big a subject to cover just now. Frank, where can people get hold of you if they want to talk more about the future of talent and how to recruit?
Yeah, please message me on LinkedIn. Make sure you include a message. Don't just connect with me generically. And let's have an intro call if you guys want to talk. I'm always open to a call.
Brilliant.
Thank
Frank,
you so much.
I've learned tons from this. What a big brain you've got around these subjects. Your experience really shines through, and thank you so much. Thanks for everybody who's come along and listened in, and especially those people that have given us questions, and it's been great. And thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Bye for now.
Bye.